Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cars and Coffee with Kenny Brown. I am Carrie Southworth with my co-host Brad Grissom. Okay, well, Brad's not coming on. You'll see him later. Anyway, we have a great show lined up today. As you know, hi, Brad. As you know, it is spring is in the air and track events and racing has started. And this is, I think, the most exciting time of the year. And so today we're going to tell you a little bit about the Kenny Brown Bear Pro4-R race brake kit that Kenny developed with Bear Brakes. And I'm really excited. We're going to have our own Wes Duenkel on the show today. He's going to share some exclusive photography from his recent trip to Sebring on the new 2024 GT3 race car. These are a lot of pictures you probably haven't even seen yet. He has a lot embargoed from Ford, so we're really excited to have him on. And remember, we have our weekly giveaway, and we are going to be giving away a tumbler and Kenny Brown tumbler, and also issue to a subscription to Mustang Hub magazine. As you know, we love this magazine. Wes writes in here quite a bit, and it's a pretty cool thing. So anyway, that's what we'll be giving away. Let's see who's with us today. We have Tim Allen. Good to see you. It looks like Brian West is here. Calvin Goring. Great to see you as well. Bob Jones, Joe Johnson, Fred Frencher. I was just thinking about you. I pulled up my Mustang Times magazine that you sent me. So I appreciate that. Kenny's in this issue. And we have Bill Wellman, Rory Merrick. The other thing that we have today, and I don't think they've shown up yet, but there's supposed to be a contingency from IUPUI Motorsports Engineering people. We have hired a Ashton Graham. He's our engineering intern, and he goes to IUPUI, which is Indianapolis University, Purdue University, Indianapolis campus. That's why it's called IUPUI. Anyway, they're going to be joining us today. So if you're in the audience, make sure you say hi. We see Phil Jolly and Michael Bowman, Wayne Jones. Oh my goodness. It's great to see all of you. And Brad, what do you have any housekeeping that you need to take care of?
Well, I do. Now that you mention it. For those of you who are viewing today, if you're viewing on Facebook, it's really important that you give us a thumbs up, a like, or in particularly a heart-shaped wrench. I guess that was one of Kenny's favorites. Also, if you're viewing on the Facebook Speed Therapy Society group page, you need to remember that unless you give Facebook permission to show your name, we cannot see who you are when you leave a comment on that page. You can switch over and go to the Kenny Brown Performance Facebook page. That's our main page. And you can leave a comment there, and we will be able to see your name. If you're viewing today on YouTube, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. I think that's pretty much it. I will post up some links to the social media pages in the comments here in just a moment. And Carrie, I think that's it for me for housekeeping today.
Well, I think we're going to start right into the Kenny Brown Bear Pro4-R brake kit. As you know, we are big Bear proponents. Kenny's used Bear brakes forever. And this is a package that his son Paul Brown ran in the GT4 Pirelli. No, it's not Pirelli anymore, is it?
Yeah, it's
Pirelli World Challenge. Yeah, GTS Championship that he won in 2011. And Paul helped develop this, and then Kenny and Bear got together and they put actually more stuff into it and made it so it was track worthy. It's a true race brake setup because Paul ran it and did wonderful with it, but we added some more pieces and touches to it. So it's a great package. This is something that is going on a couple of our cars. We have a couple of the Bear brake in here, and we thought we'd show it to you. So without further ado, I want to introduce my lovely assistant, Dana White. Oh, not White, Dana. So anyway, Rich is going to talk about the brake kit, and Brad will be talking about it as well. So enjoy.
So a couple things we get asked as far as when we're discussing brakes with customers. A lot of people look at what is actually the clamping power of a brake kit, and those are important pieces because the faster you're going, the more clamping power you want. The nice thing about the Bear brake Pro4-Rs is the clamping power that we can provide in this. It's a 4-piston kit, and the pistons on the inside here are castellated pistons, and what we're looking to achieve with that is to eliminate heat migration into the caliper. Now you'll notice that it's got a 1.75 on this one here, and then the rear one is a 1.37. Now the opposing piston, nice thing about that is it's a fixed caliper, and it gives it great clamping power. So this one's capable of putting out 2,400 foot-pounds of power, clamping power on the calipers. Things that were features that Kim was very interested in, as you'll notice that it has 6 bolts. They're the APR bolts. Well, they're to get the name correct on this, they are Holychrome, yes. And they are US made. And we could have done 4 bolts, but Kim and Bear both decided that they wanted to do a 6-piston. Our 6 bolt. It's a 2-piece caliper, and they were able to actually go through and machine out some of the extra material, even on the inside of it, to lighten up the caliper. So it's a pretty light caliper, which is a nice feature to it. And so one of the nice features too with the Pro4-Rs is the quick change capabilities. And a lot of people, when they're out at the track and stuff, you'll be running, and eventually you're going to wear out the pads. And the ability to go through and make a pad change at the track is very important without having to go through and just disassemble the whole brake kit. So this one here, you just change or squeeze the clamps, pull the brakes out. And then the other nice feature about these is you can actually put your street pads back on it and drive it home afterwards. So it's very serviceable in that regard.
Rich, those calipers also have a really nice stainless steel pad abutments pin built into them as well, which does wonders for keeping the brake pad from wearing onto the surface of the caliper itself.
Yeah, they're a little hard to see on the inside, but they actually run right here, and so they actually give it a very good guide for the pads to actually move on without having to dig into the caliper.
Yeah, and that top loading pad feature is pretty cool as well. Looks like you've got some other stuff back there. Do you have one of the rotors?
Well, actually,
yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to kind of explain to people, and it's interesting, is when you're looking at what is normally a stock pad, and so this is going to be more of a stock pad. This is our front pad. So in comparison between the two, these are a 0.980 pad, and this is what your normal stock pad would run. And the value in that is heat migration plus longevity. We have a number of guys that are running the Pro4-Rs that are in endurance racing, and having a pad that's thick enough to run the complete race without having to make a pad change is pretty important. But yeah, when you look at the difference here in the pad size. Now, our Pro4-Rs, we have actually a rear brake kit for that. And this is what would be a 710 thick pad. And so this is our brake pad for the rear, and this is our brake pad for the front. So you can see pretty substantial material even in the back one. So you're not, as far as the comparison, as far as the brake bias, it really works out very well. and then we can pick and choose pad compounds based off of track temperatures and what you're running when you're out on the track.
And then the rear brake, I'm assuming that comes with the internal drum style parking brake. Do you have that?
Actually,
there you go.
Yeah,
He's got all
actually,
the
this one
crap.
here is actually set up for the Torino bearing change. So you're going to notice that it actually has the backing plates that bolt onto the end plates. So when we do a Torino bearing upgrade, what we're doing is eliminating the C-clips out of the system, so you don't have to worry about the fact of kicking one of those out someplace on the track. But then this is the backing plate for it, and it does have the parking brake, so which is important on a manual transmission car because you just can't lock it in. But this is how it's machined, and it bolts right up to the end plates on the axle housing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then, so for those of you who don't know, the Torino option that he mentioned, that is a big bearing upgrade for Ford 8.8-inch rear ends. They will lop the ends of the rear end off, and they'll weld the larger Torino style Ford 9-inch bearing on there, and so that goes a long way to helping improve
the knock. Well, what you're trying to eliminate is the knockback, and so that when you run a floating rotor, what you can get into is it'll actually move enough that it pushes the pad, and so you get a little bit of knockback. And the axle itself from the factory will move in and out, which actually adds to the knockback too. So what they're doing is they're actually locking down that axle, and so that you're not going to get that knockback that is so unnerving when you're going into a corner. Now, one of the things too, Brad, as far as with the rotors, you'll notice how they're the vanes. These are 1 1/4 inch thick, but they're 14-inch rotors. So you're going from a 13-inch rotor to a 14-inch, so you're getting more leverage. But you're also, with the pad size, you're running essentially what would be a 6-piston pad with the 4-piston weight of the caliper. So you're picking up, or you're losing weight in the calipers, but you're still getting the great clamping power, and then you're also getting the footprint of the pad that would be normal for a 6-piston.
Can you show the back of that, Rich, real quick? Or, oh no, Dana. See the L on there? A lot of people get mixed up. They just think rotors are not.
They are directional.
Yeah, they are directional. So the L obviously stands for left.
Correct. So, and what you can see is the vanes. If you get them switched, it'll actually scoop air, and you're trying to push air through the back of it, and it creates an air dam so that it doesn't cool the rotors at that point. So yeah, it's very important to make sure that the left is on the left and right is on the right. We've actually had them show up that way before. One of the other features is they all come with stainless steel brake lines, both front and rear, so that you can actually replace the rubber lines, which is going to take some of that soft pedal feel. Braided steel lines gives you more of it. It feels like a push rod, and it's just very solid. And so they all come with the stainless steel brake lines on both front and rear kits.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a moment. I've had a discussion with a mechanic, and he told me I needed to refer to those as brake hoses. So I want to hear in the audience if you can comment how many refer to it as a brake hose or a brake line. I just want to know. I've always referred to it as a line, and so has Kenny.
Okay. They are brake hoses.
So both in the front and the rear, the kit will show up with the mounting brackets, and these are aluminum CNC mounting brackets, and so they are actually made to be a direct bolt-on for the S197 spindles, and then also for the rear axle. Of course, with the brake lines, you're going to get the crush washers, and all that comes in the kit. You're going to have all the mounting hardware. That all shows up with the brake lines, and it's all packaged together.
What does it fit, Rich? Okay,
so this kit here is both front and rear for S197 with the Torino bearing upgrade. And so we do both front and rear for this one. We also have a SN95 option, and then we can do both front and rear on the SN95 straight axles. On the IRS, we actually do a rate of speed upgrade for the rear for the IRS cars, and then the Pro4Rs for the front.
And the reason why we do on the IRS cars, we do the a rate of speed upgrade versus a complete kit is because the upright on the or what some people refer to as a spindle, I guess, on the IRS is fairly flexible. So with a larger caliper and a larger rotor, you get quite a bit of pad knockback, and that's an issue that cannot be resolved easily.
Yeah, and we're actually looking at the idea that here shortly we should be able to produce our own uprights for these, so that we can actually do a much stouter brake package for it, because the rear brakes do add a lot of leverage to it and has a tendency at once to flex and twist the uprights.
So they are on our website. We sell for the SN95, Fox, and S197 at this point. But if you're not, if this isn't a package you want, we also sell a variety of other Bear Brakes products.
We actually have a very good street package. It's a Bear Pro Plus kit, and then we do a 6-piston option for you if it's going to be more of a street application with some track. You can do a 6-piston extreme kit, and that's also available.
So if you have any questions, just put them in the comments, and we'll have Dana step back in and answer them for you. Oh, Brett, I love teasing you. So we're going to get on to our next segment. But before that, I wanted to let you know a little bit about our weekly giveaway. Today, we're giving away the Fat Boy mug. We actually had to put 3 Kenny Brown logos on it because it's so fat. You see the size here. And we're also giving away a Mustang Hub subscription. And Wes, who we're having on next, does a lot of writing for Mustang Hub. So,
Cari,
yes.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
That brake kit that Rich just showed everyone, what vehicle again is it that you're using that on?
It's a S197.
Okay. And then don't we have a Fox body that's going to get those as well?
Yes.
Okay. Correct. Yep, we sure do.
We just didn't think we wanted to take a whole hour to show all of the
Right.
Kenny Brown Pro4-Rs. Yeah. But yeah, it is going on a Fox body. And the Fox body is a really interesting project. It's the first tribute car that we're doing, and the brakes are going on shortly. Meaning a tribute car. It's a Kenny Brown Outlaw tribute car. We're building tribute cars, obviously to tribute Kenny Brown. And they're just really cool cars. It's kind of like taking what he did, iconic cars he did in the past, and bringing them forward and making a couple changes, modernizing them a little bit. But what would Kenny build now? And this is exactly what he would build. And we'll tell you more about that build as it keeps progressing. And we're going to be doing some social media pieces on it as well. So look for that as well. So
Cari, we
yes.
did have a question. We had a good question from a viewer. Tim Allen, he wants to know about the wheel sizes required to run the Kenny Brown Pro4-R brake kits on a Fox body. His question was, can I run a 17-inch wheel or do I need to step up to an 18-inch wheel? And I'll let Rich answer that question.
So yes, it's going to be necessary to go to an 18-inch because the brake kit with a 14-inch rotor was actually designed to run 18-inch wheels for Pirelli World Challenge, and that was the design, was to get it to fit into an 18-inch wheel. So it would be a little too large for running a 17-inch wheel. It would be we'd actually have to take the template and just make sure, but from everything that we've looked at, is you would be very, very close, and any type of flex whatsoever might end up creating interference. So yes, it was actually designed to work with an 18-inch wheel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, and if there's any other questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have 15-minute free consultations. If you have any questions on brake setup, what brake pads you need to use for street track, or we kind of take into consideration how you're driving and can recommend the correct brake pad and the correct brakes for you. So I think Brad's going to be putting a link in the comments for you, so you can click on that. And if you want to talk about anything else besides just brakes, we're here for you. What's interesting is we have the majority of our tech staff here. There's a couple people missing, but Kenny trained us well. We had Rich, as you see, he's very knowledgeable. Brad is, and then our guest is Wes Duenkel, and he works with us and answers lots of tech questions and takes some 15-minute calls as well. So we're pleased that we have such a strong tech background. So take advantage of it with that free 15-minute call. Okay, without further ado, we are going to introduce our own Wes Duenkel. Now, he is an automotive photographer extraordinaire. He is an author. He has written the book right here, Ford Mustang, How to Build and Modify Your 2011 to 14 Mustang. It's just filled with information. If you have a S197, it's a great book. Even if you're just interested in car, you're a car geek, this is a great book to pick up. And you can purchase it on our website or on Wes's website. I can't remember how you can purchase through Wes, but he'll tell us in a few moments. But anyway, we are so excited to have him here, and he is going to share about getting behind the scenes photography for the new 2024 GT3 race car. I can hardly wait. We're going to see photos that probably nobody else has seen, and he's going to share the story of how photographing. He was one of the first photographer to photograph this car, and Ford hired him. He's a Ford photographer. So let's welcome Wes Duenkel. Yay! Hi, Wes.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me, Cari?
Yep, I can hear you
Great,
just
great.
fine.
Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate the kind introduction. Actually, when you're talking about the brakes, if I can just go back there for just a minute, because there are a few things that because I have personal experience with a Bear setup. I just put a Bear setup maybe a year and a half ago on an 86 Mustang that I have. And I have to say there's a couple things that really stood out to me. One was that the setup on my car actually fits within a 16-inch wheel, but that was kind of designed to use the factory spindles and stuff. But the point was, I was surprised given how the race, it's kind of the calipers are kind of 4-piston race type calipers, no noise whatsoever, drives just like a factory stock car. I mean, even in the back. So it also has their typical disc brake conversion in the rear, because 86 any drum brake rear ends are a nightmare just to drive. It's not even safe at today's speed. So anyway, on the rear, to address the pad knockback issue, the rear caliper is a 4-piston caliper, but it floats on some bushings. So it allows the axle the whole caliper it moves with the rotor when there's a little bit of backlash on the axles. So, but it rides on bushings, and so I thought, oh, that's probably going to be noisy. I've never heard any rattle, noise, anything from the rear end. And the parking brake cannot be overstated. You think, I don't really need a parking brake. You don't realize how often you use the park brake until you don't have one. And you're like, wow, I wish I had a park brake right now because I don't have a hammer or a piece of wood to stick behind this thing and the car's running. If it's not running, you stick it in gear. But if it's running, having a park brake, even on a race car, is, if you can have it, get it, because it is totally worth it and you don't realize how often you use it. Other thing too, on the Pro4 brake package, one thing I thought was interesting, there's also a finish available that's a nickel finish that you'll see on a lot of NASCAR calipers, a lot of full race calipers as well. So they have a nickel finish on there that's available. That also makes cleaning the caliper a lot easier, because sometimes powder coating, especially depending upon how hot the caliper gets, sometimes that exceeds the color tolerance of the powder coating. So if you are going to be racing or tracking your vehicle on a regular basis, and you're going to be putting a lot of heat into that caliper, the nickel finish is definitely an option that I'd consider. I just took some notes because while Rich was talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good thing to mention. Also, one thing that's interesting, there's a lot of there's a trend in calipers to be a monoblock caliper or a one-piece caliper. And the theory there is that, well, it's stiffer because it's one piece. Actually not. So a two-piece caliper is actually can be stiffer in theory than a monoblock caliper, because a monoblock caliper is completely aluminum. A two-piece caliper uses steel bolts that clamp the two sides of the caliper together. And by nature, those steel bolts are actually stiffer than aluminum in that area. And that's a very critical area where the bolts are. So in fact, on some F1 calipers, I think a few years ago, and I don't know if they still do this, they would forge a monoblock caliper, but they actually put steel pins or anchors in that forging to mimic what the bolts do. So there's some advantages to both, but the idea is that actually a multi-piece caliper is not less stiff than a monoblock caliper by nature. So that's actually kind of interesting. I think, yeah, and the pad changes actually, I think Kenny talked about this over the years too. There are street pads and there are track pads, and all brake pads have a certain temperature range, and there's no such thing as a pad that does it all. And that's true. So the point is, if you want to have a street pad and not, you can swap those pads easily. And that's one of the biggest hurdles a lot of times with the track cars. I'm like, well, I don't want to have to switch brake pads. That's a pain in the neck. Well, it's easy to do it with that when you can swap the pads out. So anyway, so a couple things I want to talk about there that made me think about it. Let's talk about Mustang GT3. So I was fortunate enough to go and photograph the Mustang GT3, and there's a lot to talk about, much of which I can't because just out of courtesy. The idea, though, is we will talk about the things that we can see on the photos, because I think that's fair, and I think that's what everybody else that's fair game. And so I'll show you the photos that were available to all of the media, and it's actually quite extensive because a lot of people didn't post all the photos, but they're all available for us to look at. So we'll kind of talk about the things that we can see in the photos, we'll kind of talk about GT3 cars and all that in general. So should I share my screen here? I guess we'll try this.
Yeah, why don't you do that? And if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments for Wes. And I think just Wes, you talking about adding more comments on the brake package and stuff like that. This just shows how deep our technical knowledge is. So thank you, Wes, for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
before you get into that, could you just share a little bit about your background? And I know you started at a young age, because there's a lot of people that are viewing that haven't heard your background before. So I'd love you to share that and where you are today.
Yeah, just Cliff Notes. I bought my first car out of high school in 1995, in May of 1995, and I wanted a V8 rear-wheel drive car. There was a Mustang that was for sale close to me, and so I bought it for $1,500. Ever since then, Mustangs have just kind of been what I've known. It's not like I didn't go out shopping for a Mustang, but it was inexpensive, rear-wheel drive, V8 car, manual transmission, great. So that's what I ended up with, and ever since then, I've kind of been a big Mustang nerd. So I've worked in the industry really my whole career in different capacities, and so ever since 2006, 2006/7, I've done motorsports photography, which kind of melds two of my passions, which is art and mechanics, right? So the car photography works great, and I get to scratch both those itches every day, which is great. I do a lot of photography for about a third of what I do is IMSA racing photography, and then about the other third of what I do is technical writing and publications and photography for that, like magazines and books, whatever. And then the remaining third is photography that's like corporate side. So like new product introductions, stuff like this for Ford. This, I guess, is a little bit of both because it's IMSA related, yet also corporate stuff. So yeah, it's about the third of what I do each. Those three buckets pretty much take up all my time. So yeah, it's a good thing.
That's great. And we're really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the GT3 car. So yeah, if you want to go into Brad, if you want to input here, if you want to start with the photos, because I'm sure you're going to be loading them up.
Can you guys see my screen here or no?
We can. Are you going to be showing them?
Yeah,
Wes?
yeah, I'll be able to go flip through them. So yeah, if you guys see here, is this working then, Brad and Cari?
No, we can't see your screen. We can see your mug. There we go. We can see it.
Great. That better?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go forward. So Mustang GT3. GT3 is a class that's kind of, it's a designation that's kind of worldwide right now. It's designed for cars that are, production based. And many sanctioning bodies now, racing organizations now have a place for GT3 cars to race. So we're talking, even Le Mans will be in 2024, I believe, will be the first year that they will have GT3 cars at Le Mans as well. So they used to, Ford GT used to race in a class called GTLM. That was not GT3, but the point is now even Le Mans is going to be adopting the GT3 regulations. So GT3 cars, it's a little bit different. So you think of a GT3 car or a race car, and the idea oftentimes with the race cars to make everything fast, make it fast, and everything else comes secondary. With the GT3 car, it's actually, these are designed for people to buy. So teams can buy them. So if you are a wealthy gentleman or you are a team that wants to attract drivers and customers to drive your cars, this is the car for you. So the way they do things, there's a bunch of different cars that race in that class, right? So you'll have Mustangs soon. You have Acura. You have Corvette soon. You have Porsche, obviously, Ferrari. All these different cars have to compete and have a level on a level playing field, roughly. So what they do is they achieve this parity with something called balance of performance, and that balance of performance uses a few different parameters to kind of make the cars equally fast over the course of a race. And that means that some cars may be faster in some ways and other cars may be faster in other ways. But the idea is, in theory, all cars would cross the finish line at the same time. And so the purpose is to highlight the teams and driver talent, not necessarily how fast each car is, because they're going to be different. So that's kind of something to keep in mind when it comes to looking at a car like this. So there are things in this car to make it fast, but the idea here isn't to make it the fastest, because if you're the fastest, they're just going to add more weight or make it more difficult for you to compete. Ford GT was an excellent example of that. It was a very fast car, especially on this Mulsanne straight at Le Mans. But the problem was it was almost too fast, and so they had to actually throw a lot of weight at it, take a lot of boost away, all that kind of stuff. And the problem is, in general, if they would have made a car that was maybe less fast, they would have been more successful. That being said, so anyway, that's a long way to say that we're going to talk about some of the basic things here, and not all these things are designed to make the car fast. They make the car reliable, make it friendly to customers, all that kind of thing. Anyway, so Mustang GT3 here, you'll see a couple of things that could probably stick out. Complete carbon fiber bodywork, right? So we have, I don't know if you guys can see my pointer here, but in the GT3 car, you have a lot of room to play in the aerodynamic situation. What they do is
Hey, Wes?
Yeah.
We lost the photo sharing. You'll have to reshare. Not sure what happened to it. It just disappeared off the screen.
I understand. Okay, let me try again. Yeah, it's fine. I think I know what happened. My computer went to sleep. So okay. I mean, is it now? You can see it, I assume.
Yep. Okay. Let me add it back to the stream.
Now can you see, right? You good? I assume we good there? I don't know. I can't hear you guys at the moment.
Yes, we're good.
Okay, now you guys are there, right?
Yeah, but now we see like multiple screens. Okay.
Yeah, now you see a car, right?
Yeah, well, we see a lot of, there we
There
go.
you go.
Okay,
there you go.
Sorry about that. Okay, anyway, so well, let's see, GT3 car. So obviously all carbon fiber bodywork. In the GT3 regulations, the idea is you kind of build a car and you make sure that the car performs kind of in the window of where everybody else is at. And then you freeze that design. You say, okay, this is our car. And then they document everything and make sure that then going forward, you have to run those fenders. Going forward, you have to run those wheels. Going forward, you have to run the brakes that you said you're going to run. So you can't really make any big technical changes to the car going forward. So if you do need to make changes, you can lobby for that. But the idea is you kind of get everything squared away and all set in stone, and then you have to sell it to customers for them to race. And so you got to get everything right. So that's why you do a lot of testing. Anyway, carbon fiber bodywork, you can see that here. This car also, you can see where the exhaust comes out the side. That's obviously a change from, where the normal Mustang, exits. There's a couple different reasons for that, but the idea mainly is just packaging. You can only put the exhaust in a couple places with a race car where it's low, all that kind of stuff. So the idea here is just to get the exhaust out where you need to. So therefore that exhaust gives it a pretty unique sound. It's more of a old school Cobra kind of sound versus a new, NASCAR kind of sound. So actually NASCAR probably sounds very similar to this car now too. A couple other things we can see here, like here on the front fenders, you can see these large vents. That aerodynamics are a pretty big factor.
Wes, can you hear me?
Yep.
You went backwards. So we're seeing the rear end of the Mustang, which is the last photo. We're seeing the rear end of the Mustang now.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, there's several photos I have here. We'll go kind of talk about different things. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we have this is you can see here the front fender, though. You can see the vents where the air comes through the front fender. So aerodynamics is a big thing on these cars, especially in the front, and air management around the front to create front downforce. So a lot of times to get the air for front downforce, you need the air under the front of the car, and then you need to get that air out somewhere. And a lot of times clearly here, it looks like it goes through the wheel well area and around the front tires. So that's kind of a pretty typical hallmark of modern GT3 cars. Also, you see a big diffuser in the back here too. Big diffuser makes, draws the air from under the car out to the back of the car and kind of blends the transition between the two to create more downforce and less drag. Big wing in the back here. So actually we'll talk, but big wing in the back, of course, is the lion's share of the downforce, and also where you make adjustments, to the rear, to the balance of the car most likely, because the front you can't really make adjustments. There isn't really any adjustment on the front downforce. So we got the wing going on back there. Front wise, there's a lot big air intakes in the bottom. That's where air obviously comes through, and you can see in the hood here these big vents in the hood. So that's where air comes out. Very likely the radiator, that kind of thing. So that's where a lot of the air for the cooling comes out through the hood. Not necessarily downforce though. All air that comes from under the car then exits the car elsewhere. So this is just kind of some neat morning stuff from Sebring. Sebring's a really nice track in the morning. There's lots of cool stuff to do there. So more stuff. That's Joey Hand driving. And Joey Hand's been a very instrumental part in Ford's racing activities up to this point, which is great. So he's been a huge part of it. Kind of, as he's kind of describes, he's like, when Ford says jump, I say jump. So he goes all over the place. He races NASCAR when he's available to, and he does a lot of simulator work, all that kind of stuff. So they keep him very, very busy, which is good to see. Here, you can see too, car goes over bumps pretty well. A lot of testing is just to determine not only to make it fastest, because what makes Joey fast in a car may not necessarily be what makes a less experienced driver fast. And in most GT3, well, there's two categories in IMSA. There's a pro category, and it's called GTD, and then there's GTD Pro. GTD has a gentleman driver, so it's someone who may be less experienced or they're not a professional, races with a professional. So they share the car together, two drivers, one non-professional and then a professional. In GTD Pro, there are two professionals. And so therefore the car is going to be set up probably a bit differently, maybe a bit more darty, maybe a bit looser. So the idea here when we're testing is to, make sure that the car doesn't have any bad vices, any kind of bad behaviors or things that would catch a gentleman driver out. So that's one way, one of the reasons you do a lot of testing. Here with the car too, you can see with the side exhaust, it's kind of glowing ahead of the rear wheel. All GT3 cars are required to have a catalytic converter. And so that is likely the cat that's glowing right there. It's a pretty free-flowing catalytic converter. So Also, that since they probably run at a lambda or at a air fuel ratio that's not necessarily perfect for the catalytic converter, it's probably going to be a little bit hotter than normal. Not sure how effective they are, but one thing that the catalytic converters do at the very least is they make the car quieter, which is helpful. So these cars are actually not that loud, which is a welcome addition. Just because when you start it up in the pits or the paddock and all that stuff, it's not ear-splitting, it's not ridiculously loud, which is helpful. More stuff from Sebring here. So trying to think too as we go through these photos if there's anything. I think brakes. I think that's one of the things that Brad asked about. Brakes are steel brakes. That's pretty typical for the class. I don't think carbon brakes are not allowed in GT3 cars. Suspension setup wise, Ford has said that it's a short long arm suspension in the front, which seems true. And then in the rear, I believe, I'm not sure what they said for the rear, but it's a typical race car rear suspension in the back as well. Engine wise, what they have said, you're looking at this car and obviously there's not a whole lot. I mean, obviously a lot of this doesn't look very production, right? So there's no steel or aluminum body panels. It's all carbon. The car looks clearly wider, that kind of stuff. So the biggest thing, actually, the most production related thing really is the engine, because the engine, hang on one second. I have my son practicing his bassoon. I'll tell him to take a break for a minute.
Oh, that's hilarious. And isn't this so normal when you're at home? Something makes noises. We have one of our mechanics here working on a car, and we said, okay, be quiet for the next hour.
No air inches. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's no problem. So anyway, engine. So the probably the most production related thing, I think, or the production close to production on this car is the engine. The engine's a Coyote based. It's based on a 5-liter engine. I believe Ford has confirmed that it's 5.4 liters. But it's, if you know modular engines or whatever, 5.4 liters rings a bell, but it's not a tall deck block or anything like that. It's a in GT3 regulations, I think you can bore and stroke the production engine. So you just choose which engine you want to do, and you can increase the displacement. So they've increased the displacement, but it's I'm not going to go into many more details about the engine just out of courtesy, because I'm not sure exactly what they want shared or what is not shared. So the idea is it's production based. It's it's based on a 5-liter Coyote engine. And you'd be surprised how many production pieces they use for the engine and how related to production it is. So it's surprisingly stock, I guess I would say. So it's which is encouraging for many of us who are really into modern Mustangs and all that kind of stuff. So what you've seen on the 2024 Mustang with the dual throttle bodies and all that kind of stuff, surprisingly production related. So really interesting that way. Trying to think here too, that's Harry Tinknell, who was also driving the car for a while. Trying to think of what else we can talk about here that just kind of shows up here. Obviously Sebring's airport, so it's cool, and there's planes in the background. They did some testing over 2 days. Initially, the first day there was some teething things. The car really made its driving debut at Sebring. I mean, there was they hadn't done any track testing beforehand. So first day was dealt. They were spent a lot of time dealing with some teething issues, which you're going to have with a brand new race car when you shake it down. And but once those were worked out, the following day they ran a lot. The following day, lots of time, which was good. So I think. Trying to think what else we can talk about here. So
how about a little bit about the wing? That's pretty
sure. So yeah, good point, good question. So the wing, I'm not sure if the GT3 regulations have a wing size regulation or not. I'm not sure, but it's really large. It's you see how it's mounted on the, let's see if I have a better picture here. It's not really good. It's mounted it's under, like it's mounted from the top. The idea there is where the wing generates downforce is on the bottom. It's trying to suck itself to the ground. And so any kind of obstruction or anything that's attached to the bottom is just lost area that's not generating downforce. So the idea is if you have like a gooseneck, I guess sometimes they call it, gooseneck wing, will you mount it to the top because that's less important than the bottom. So yeah, they have it you know, on the bottom. All the entire bottom surface has you know, is generating downforce then. So that's more efficient from a drag standpoint and a downforce standpoint. So anytime you can generate more downforce with less angle of attack, you're going to have better, you know, less drag and all that kind of thing. You kind of notice where it's mounted here too. It's mounted to the back of the car, which is interesting as well. There's some reasons why that is, and I'm not really going to go into that. But it's a little bit different. It's obviously unique to this car, the way that is. It's just going to where there is good structure, I guess, let's just say. And that's just a way to do it. I think there's also you know, a measure of convenience there when I know the Ford GT's rear wing was attached to the back of the bodywork. And so anytime they took the back of the car off, the wing came off with it. Here you can imagine that you can, let's see. Well, you can see where you can take the back bumper off if you need to, and you don't have to worry about the wing. And so that's one of the things too, being able to change the nose and the tail and the diffuser in short order during a race is important because those things get damaged. And so, you know, anytime you have contact or whatever, you're going to just, you know, you're going to have to learn and know how to change the front bumper and back bumper quickly. So there's little catches on here. They'll have these, you know, quick catches to be able to take the front bumper and back bumper off. They do it in a matter of seconds. If they can do it in 30 seconds, that's probably typical of changing the front and rear bumper. Hopefully less if they're really prepared. Being a Mustang, it does good burnouts. And it should. There's two different regulations, actually, you'll see. So Le Mans does not allow you to spin the wheels on pit lane. I guess you could say the WEC rules, the World Endurance Championship rules, don't allow you to spin the tires on pit lane. Probably from a safety standpoint, all that kind of thing. I get it, but it's kind of boring. IMSA does allow you to spin the tires on pit lane, and so they will do it judiciously and prudiciously because that's a good way to warm the tires up. It doesn't really warm the whole carcass up, but it's just something to warm the tires up, and you don't risk a stall. You just drop the hammer and pop the clutch, and away you go. I'm not sure. Did you guys have? I don't have that document in front of me as far as questions.
You've covered most of the questions, and but we do have a couple of questions from the comments. Rory would like to know: are the hood scoops functional? He said it's looking like a Ford GT style.
Yes, and yes. So a normal production car, you look at like our normal S550 or S6, any Mustangs, they are bottom breathers and they are bottom exiters. So what I mean, a lot of times the air comes in the front grille and then feeds the radiator, and then the rest of the air just kind of finds its way out under the car. Here, they don't want any, in a race car, you don't want any air going under the car that you don't want, that's not generating downforce. So here, cooling air comes in through the radiator, and then the idea is and you've seen lots of cars that have hood vents. That's not I mean, GT500 has a hood vent. GT350 has a hood vent. Functionality of those is, you know, little hood vents don't do anything, but big hood vents like on the GT500, they certainly do things. And so the idea is if you can get the air coming in the radiator and coming out the hood versus hitting the firewall and kind of having to find its way under the car and packing air under the car, that's good. So this separates the two functions. The cooling goes through the front and comes out the hood. Downforce goes under the front splitter and finds its way out the car via like diffusers or whatnot under the car. So that's pretty typical. So yeah, those are definitely and you can see how on the rear wing here we have a gurney flap. That's pretty, you know, Dan Gurney's and All American Racers kind of pioneered that idea of putting a little bit of angle iron here that actually creates a extra area of negative pressure to really keep the air attached to the wing all the way to the back. Same thing here. See these little lips here? These are to kind of create a negative pressure area right behind that lip, and that lip actually helps keep the air in these ducts attached and makes them more efficient with a very little drag penalty. So it's you'll even see them on airplane wings, the vortex generators, all that kind of stuff. That's all little things that that create very little drag but make the shape more efficient. So yeah, the hood vents are very much cooling the car, just like on the Ford GT. That is correct.
Well, that's, are you going to, okay. Do you have
Yeah,
more
I'm just
pictures?
walking through photos. Yeah. Any other questions or anything you guys thought
Well,
about?
I have a question once you get through this about you.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
think everybody's enjoying these. They're
Did anybody
phenomenal.
else have any questions? Make sure to put them in the comments or anything like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's pretty phenomenal photography. While we're waiting for another question or two, before you go forward,
Mhm.
how hard? I want you to tell people, I know it's difficult to shoot a moving car. I mean, that is phenomenal. You're catching those. How hard is it to do it? And how did you learn that trait? I'm sure.
Just practice, trial by error. If it wasn't for digital cameras, I would be lost. So you can see results of what you just did you get instant feedback on the back of the camera. So a lot of
Right.
times you're like, oh, that didn't work. And it becomes intuitive after a while. But you also realize there's a lot of physics going on when you're, photographing cars in general too. And so what is sharp is not moving relative to the camera. So like, for example, let's see if I have one that's more blurry. Oh, here we go. Well, that's a good example, but let's see here. I'm going to go to something that has a bit more movement to it. Okay, this has a lot of movement to it. It's not that maybe good an example. Yeah, this is a good one. Sorry. Here, this is better. Okay, so this photo, the car, we have some blur here because I probably was at, a 60th of a second or something like that. So anyway, the car's not moving super fast, but the idea is here you can see the wing is blurry, right? It's got some motion blur. Here the tail lights are blurry. Here the front wheel is not blurry. It's pretty sharp. So the idea is this point in the image while the shutter is open is not moving relative to the camera. So the idea is I'm kind of following this. I did just kind of holding the camera down by my holding the camera down. But in fact, I can show a video of that. But anyway, there's so you kind of move what you want sharp in the photo has to stay station. The camera has to be pointed at that, and that's not necessarily always the easiest thing to do. But yeah, it has to be pointed at that. So that's kind of how you do it, and it's just practice, practice more than anything. So,
Is there any suggestions you'd make for a very amateur photographer,
Mhm.
or somebody that just is
yeah.
shooting
So that's a good
when
question.
they're trying to? Where do they start to photograph the moving car?
Yeah, practice. I would go, have somebody drive your car around and you can take some photos, or have somebody drive their car around and take some photos. Go to a winding road and experiment. Don't be afraid to try things out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not like you're spending film or anything like that. And also I would think too, I spent a lot of time looking at photos that I really liked and thought, how did they do that? And really analyze how they probably did that and where they stood. What was the angle? I think also, and I say it multiple times, that the best photographers in the world are in sports car racing, in my view. And the reason I say that is because, or at least the best motorsports photographers are in sports car racing, because the venues are different. We all kind of work together at the track. So what I mean is, we'll be reviewing photos together in a photo room a lot of times, and you'll be walking by somebody and you look at their photo and we always call it coveting thy neighbor's photos, but we look at your photos and it's like, holy cow, where'd you do that? How'd you do that? And a lot of times you're like, yeah, I was over this corner or whatever. And the point is, two people can be standing right next to each other in a turn and not get this and have vastly different viewpoints of it. And so I think it's competitive. It's healthy competition amongst each other too. Just like on the track, there's also competitive competition among photographers, really. And I think the idea is you want to try to do something cooler than the next guy, not because you want to be better, but because it's just interesting that way. It's competitive. It's healthy competition. Like, man, that was great. So-and-so did this great photo. I want to figure out how to do something like that as well. Or, a lot of times it depends too on your attitude. A lot of times I take the best photos when I'm not in a hurry, because a lot of times if I'm at a track and it's a professional race weekend and I have 3 different or 4 different or 5 different clients that I have to satisfy, a lot of times you just gravitate toward the things that are going to work. And you have less time to be creative and think think creatively and think outside the box, because you don't have time to think outside the box. It's like, I'm going to be here. I've only got 20 minutes left in the session. I got to get 3 more angles for five people. I'm going to just gravitate to what I know what works. So that's one of the challenges there.
Well, that kind of leads to my other question, because you started kind of dipping into when you're on track. Can you bring us through the day in the life of a photographer for a 24-hour race?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Just like the cruise, though, I guess maybe it's a 40-hour day pretty much. So let's just say you get up at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning, you head to the track, which is actually pretty late. Usually I try to be at the track by 7 in most days anyway. Depends on what stuff's going on, sometimes earlier. But just like with the cruise, you're getting up, you're getting ready. There's a lot of stuff that goes on before the race, especially like Daytona or something. There's the autograph session, there's the parade, sometimes there's a historic stuff in the morning. There's a bunch of things going on. And so, I mean, it's like you get to the track at 7 in the morning. Then the race maybe starts, let's just say for sake of argument, let's just say it starts at 4. I don't know. Sometimes it starts early. I can't remember. But anyway, so then of course you have the whole 24-hour race. And you'd be surprised, but a 24-hour race, you think has plenty of time to do photos. It's kind of, I mean, you have time to do some creative work, but the idea is if you're trying to get, let's just say I want to get a pit stop. I want to make sure I get a daytime pit stop. Well, they pit every hour roughly. And so the idea is, well, I'm going to get a pit stop during this time, but I mean, you have to be there at that certain time and you may miss it. So then you're like, shoot, now I got to come back in about 45 minutes to make sure that I don't miss it next time. And so you're constantly moving around. You want to get a nighttime pit stop. You want to do this kind of stuff. It's actually, there's not a whole lot of time necessarily. I mean, you want to get certain sunset photos. You want to get certain nighttime photos. You want to get certain pit stop photos at night. You want to get sunrise photos. You want to, get dirty race cars when the sun's coming up, all that kind of stuff. Then before you know it, the race is pretty much done. You know that the last time they're going to pit is about an hour before the end of the race, at least, because the fuel only lasts about an hour. So you got to be in the pits in an hour before the race to get that. Then there's checkered flag stuff. Then there's podium. And then let's just say the race ends at 4. And so the podium unfortunately, probably runs till 5 or 5:30. It's a long, drawn out deal. Then you're editing photos to deliver to clients. You've been editing photos throughout the race also, though, and you're trying to get them interim stuff, stuff from the start, stuff from the first pit stops, all that stuff. So you probably have made 4 deliveries to your clients over the course of 24 hours, which is no small task because you have thousands of photos to go through. And then after the podium, you want to get the podium finishers if they're any of your clients. So you got to do that. So basically you end up probably working till, I guess, probably 10 o'clock that night. So I guess I don't know how many hours that would be, but I mean, you get up at 6 and you're done. I don't know. You finally go to bed by 12 the next day. So I guess how many hours that is, but it's long.
Yeah. 24 hours are we've done a number of them, and they're tough. They're exciting. Your adrenaline's going, but I just was wondering what your, a little bit about your day. We have a question from you. Do you usually work alone, or do you crew up or have an assistance?
I usually work alone. But that's true. Some people have assistants because depending upon how many clients they have. When it comes to photographing like a corporate deal, sometimes I'll have an assistant along just to help. Basically, voice operated light stands is what they are. So I mean, it's like turn the light this way, do it this way, back up, move that light over there. It just saves time because I can adjust the intensity of the light at different from my camera, but I can't necessarily change the angle or the location of the light. I can't do that from the camera, so I have to move it myself. I'm usually running around and doing it myself, but I would say about half the time when I'm doing a corporate shoot, I do it myself, and then the other half of the time I have somebody with me. During race weekends, there's you kind of have certain groups that you kind of work with. There's a couple different people that I kind of work with, and so sometimes I help fill in, provide some additional photos that they may need, or they provide photos that I may need. When I did the Ford GT and Porsche's corporate stuff back in the a few years ago, a colleague and I shared Porsche and Ford together, so we both would complement each other on the work. So we kind of split it up. I'd be in pit lane for this race. He'd go in pit, not for the race, but I'm saying I'd make sure that my job would be, because we have like say hour and 45-minute races or 2 hour and a half races. I forget how long they usually are, but the point is this race, I'll be sure I'll be sure to be on pit lane when pit stops happen, because it's unpredictable when it happens, and you waste a lot of time, oftentimes sitting there waiting for pit stops to happen. And the point is, if other person is out there doing trackside stuff, that is helpful. So we kind of tag team it, double team stuff, and so that helps. Yeah, if that makes sense there too. Actually, and if you have another question too, I'm gonna actually find.
Wes, we did have another question while you're looking for the video, I think is what you're doing.
Yep.
Tim Allen, who asked the previous question, he wants to know what's your favorite camera lens, I think, type of manufacturer that you use. Oh,
yeah, sure. Actually, in here, I'm going to share my screen here too, because I think we've got some, this is a good one. I'm sorry, hold on one second. So, sorry, just not able to talk and move my mouse at the same time. No, camera wise, I use Nikon stuff, but it's kind of just a matter of preference. Can you guys see my screen now?
Hang on just a second, I'll add it. Okay, so looks like we're looking at the Ford Performance YouTube channel.
Yeah, yep. Actually, look at that NASCAR photo at the top. That's a pretty snazzy photo. If I do, anyway. That's my photo up there.
Yeah, that's great.
We did NASCAR stuff, 2 years ago or something in May. Anyway, I use Nikon photos, but it's just a matter of preference. I mean, Nikon photography equipment, but it's just a matter of preference. To me, Nikon stuff, I used to actually had Canon stuff back in 2012, and I switched to Nikon in 2013, just because the people that I admired their work, they use Nikon stuff. And also Canon kept moving. It was more of usability. Nikon's controls are always in the same location. Their power switch is always in the same location. These different buttons are generally in the same location. Canon moves it around all the time, and it was irritating. They'd move the power switch. That's the most important button on the camera, and they'd move it from the back of the camera to the side of the camera to the top of the camera. I'm like, what are you doing? So it was just more of irritation. I was just irritated with it. And at the time, I needed to upgrade my equipment wholesale at the time. So I did a wholesale change, and I just switched to Nikon at the time. And I'm kind of glad I did, just from the standpoint that things have been really consistent for me. And I'm old, and I'm set in my ways, and so I don't want to change. So Nikon, I do not have mirrorless cameras yet. Most people have mirrorless cameras, at least to some extent right now. To me, when I change my equipment, my philosophy is the devil I know is oftentimes better than the devil I don't. And every time I change equipment, a lot of times I'm like, oh, this is going to be all positive, but there's usually some things that I don't like about a new equipment, and I'm like, darn it, I didn't know this was going to be a problem. With mirrorless cameras, there's going to the mirrorless cameras were not there. They didn't work well for what I wanted to do yet. The newest mirrorless cameras are finally, I think, on par with a standard, SLR camera as far as speed, usability, and all that kind of stuff. And they offer several big advantages. So the new Nikon Z9 is one that, if I was going to switch to it, I probably would. My thinking is I'm going to probably wait for the next generation of that if it comes out, to know that, it's going to be even better than the one before. So, but for me, buying a new piece of equipment needs to solve problems. I'm not a camera enthusiast. I'm a problem solver. And so if a new piece of equipment doesn't solve a problem, I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it just to have something new. That's just not me. To me, cameras are, people say it all the time, cameras are tools, but to me, they are tools. They're not, I'm not into it. Cars, I like cars. Cars are not tools.
Wes, real quick before we get to the video.
Yep.
We asked Jeff Jacobucci, who is viewing today. Wes, Jeff pretty well, because you see him on IMSA weekends. Jeff assists with tech inspections, all things technical for IMSA. And so we asked him about the wing, and he noted that each car is homologated differently as to the wing. So they're not all exactly the same. So what he's saying is each type of car, whether it's a Mustang, an Acura NSX, a Ferrari, a Porsche 911, each car has their own wing spec. So that the same size wing that a Mustang uses may not be the same size wing that's used on say a 911 or a Corvette.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure if they had like a length spec, but generally with GT3, the thing that's kind of cool about it is that you can manufacturers can kind of show up in general with whatever they want. And then once they test the performance of that car, then they know, okay, well, it needs to weigh X, it needs to have a restrictor size that's Y, and it needs to have, usually it's, let's see, if it's turbocharged or something, they'll say it'll boost Z. You know what I mean? It's got to have these. There's a few different knobs that they can turn from a technical standpoint to bring the cars into parity. I'm not sure if they check ride height and things like that. They might. I'm not sure on GT3, but the idea is there's a few different knobs that they, a few different ways that they bring parity to the different vehicles. So yeah, and that's the thing that's kind of cool about it, is that you can show up with whatever you want, and then there. You don't want to be way out at the window, because then you're going to have a lot of well, if you're really slow, there's no way to catch up. But if you're way too fast, there's going to be some advantages of weighing 300 pounds heavier than the next car, as far as tire wear and all that kind of stuff is concerned. So you want to be in the window, you want to be in the ballpark, and then let the adjustments do their job, from that standpoint.
One more question before you show the video we have from Joe Johnson. He's wondering if you have any shots of the engine bay.
Yes, I have shots of engine. Can you see them? No.
I knew that was the answer.
Yeah. So actually, I think Ford may have some different videos and stuff. I don't think so, though. I'm not. It may. Yeah, as far as I know, I'm. Yeah. And I appreciate the question. I only am going to. This GT3 program is very high profile as far as Ford's concerned, and so I'm only showing the photos and talking about the photos of what they want to have visible, and it's for good reason. So there's lots of stuff for the engine. But like I said, I think it's production based. It's a really refreshingly production type engine in a race car. In fact, you think about back to the 60s or whatnot. Trans Am, engines in Trans Am and all that stuff were NASCAR engines, way different than production engines, especially nowadays. There's no production engines that are in NASCAR. It's all, they're all race spec pushrod engines, which there's no pushrod engines in cars anymore except for GM. But the idea is the engines are usually way different in a race car. On the GT3 car, it's quite different. The chassis is the chassis is very different, from production. I mean, it's production based, but everything's been kind of massaged and breathed on. Engine is actually the most production related thing on the car, which is pretty cool. So that's good from an enthusiast standpoint, because that means we learn, and Ford learns things from using production engines in their race cars. So to me, that's a very positive thing. I really enjoy it. So the reason I want to show this video here was just because it kind of talks a little bit. You can kind of see it from this car from a different perspective. Now, I don't know if the sound is going to work or not. We'll see. But let's try this here and see what you guys can see this screenshot of the video, right, before it starts?
Yeah, we've got it.
Okay, great. I'm not sure how well you guys are able to see that or not, but a couple of things that were kind of interesting in the video, and I want to point out because we can see them.
This is the bar.
Anyway, were you guys able to see that video a little bit?
Yeah, we were. We definitely were able to see her. Pretty impressive.
Okay, great. So a couple of things. You talked about photography. That the thing I was gonna kind of address that reminded me of the video was here in the video. You can see.
Let's go back to the video.
Yeah. So here, that video of the burnout that I was talking about before, where I'm kind of focusing on the front wheel. here it's just, I'm kind of holding the camera down, and this was just a muscle memory and experience kind of thing. But here, that's where, sorry, got blurry there. Sorry, hang on. So that's, I'm pointing the camera, at the front wheel, more or less, a little bit above it, because I want the car to be framed in the bottom. But the point is, I'm not looking at a screen or anything, because it's a little bit laggy anyway. So this is just not looking through the camera, and just kind of, it's a wide angle lens, so you're gonna get the car in there, but you want it framed right. So that's a lot of it's just experience, is following I'm literally just using my hands to follow the front tire area, the nose of the car generally, to pan with it. Other thing that was kind of interesting though too is if you go back, it's on the Ford Performance website, the video, but you watch the tire as it goes over the curbing. Where did they show that? It was kind of here. It was a slow motion kind of deal. Anyway, you could see the tire go over the curbing, and you can see the tire move laterally on the wheel, because it's under load. It's providing lateral force, and then once it hits a part in the curb that's like a valley in the curb, it springs back. So it sits there and bounces. It's not, when you go over curbs, you think your tires are bouncing up and down over the curbs. They are a little bit, but most of that, what you feel in a turn when you're on a curb, is the tire moving sideways, back and forth on the wheel. That's the big shudder that you really feel, is when you're driving straight over curbs, it's just up and down. But when you're going through a turn over curbs, the tire springs back and forth, because it's, wobbling, and it's gripping and not gripping, and gripping and not gripping. So it's really, that was kind of an illustrative that they showed in the video, the slow motion part, with the tire kind of wobbling over the curbs. And that's a big thing that it was really cool that you can see in a video that you can't see in photos.
Wes, we did have a couple of other questions. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one if we can't talk about it, and I can't see who's asking the question. They're obviously viewing on the group page. It just says Facebook user, but it says, can you say if there are two throttle bodies? And I'm guessing the answer would be no, because it's a lot harder to balance out performance using two throttle bodies. I don't know many manufacturers that do use two throttle bodies, at least in like a racing scenario like that. Right. And they obviously they run this engine in the V8 supercar series already. I understand where you're single throttle body with a very small restrictor.
Right.
That's what were you going to say?
No, it's good. No, that's a really good question, Brad. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I'm not going to say whether or not it has two throttle bodies. I think it's fair to say that what you're saying, Brad, makes a lot of sense. This engine, I'm not sure how. So there is the V8 supercar engine. They do share. I think the V8 supercars engine is also 5.4 liters. I'm not.
Yes, it is.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So I couldn't remember at the time. So yeah, I guess all I will say is that it's the displacement seems to be similar than the supercar engine. The goals of the two engine programs are probably different. The exhaust setups are quite a bit different. But anyway, about the two throttle bodies or a single throttle body, you would be right. I think your assessment is probably accurate, Brad. Beyond that, I'm not going to say anything. But I think you'll be. It's really cool. I mean, the engine management system in this car is a race engine management system. They're all race engine management systems in these cars. They're not production based engine in all GT3 cars. They're white. You can run any engine management you want. I think actually maybe. I'm not sure how they gather data. Most of these engine management systems, from what I understand, are Bosch. That's what Ford has been using in their different programs. So I'm not sure if that's a GT3 thing where manufacturers, sanctioning bodies need to. They usually get their data from their own. I think from their own data acquisition systems. So I don't think it matters. But anyway, the point is. I'm not going to say anything about the engine, but I think people are going to be. It's going to be refreshing how production rated the engine is. It's a really good engine. It's really cool. So anyway,
and then another question we had from our friend Rory up in Canada, is this a solid axle car? And of course, the answer to that question would be no. They
Right.
haven't used.
They
really
haven't used solid axle stuff in a long time. That's really. I won't comment about what suspension the car has. But I think, there's advantages to solid axle and not, but most of those in a road racing situation are not. In a car like this, where you have freedom to create your suspension how you want it to, design your from a clean sheet, you could say. If you want to be able to go from a clean sheet, an IRS is usually a better way to go. It has some distinct advantages versus a solid axle, but that's all things being equal. And as as we all know too, that's even in production cars, it's not necessarily true either. So so I think suspension wise, you can probably see that there's a decent amount of camber on the rear wheels in the photos, and that would be like here. You can see there's a lot of camber in the rear wheels, so you can accomplish that with the solid axle if you wanted. But I guess since we really can't see what the suspension looks like in the photos, I'll just leave it at that.
So we really appreciate you joining us today, Wes. Before we let you go, I wanted to know, where can we find you? I know you have on your social media channels, you have stunning photography.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a couple things. So probably the best way, let's see. My website is wesduenkel.com. And the reason I mention that is not because my website has tons of information, but at the bottom of my website, let's see here. Let's go to it once. So let's see here. So just thinking. Anyway,
I also posted a link in the comments for everyone.
So here you can contact me. You can get the book here if you want. But also at the bottom here, I have, I don't really use Twitter much, but Instagram's a big place. My YouTube channel, and then I have a Facebook page as well. But on my YouTube channel, in fact, I was going to mention that as well. So here we can go to this YouTube channel here. I have about Bear. There's a Bear brake install on the Fox body, and it talks all about it. That's a good place to go. A lot of Kenny Brown stuff in here as well. But the Bear brakes, that talks about the Bear brake stuff. I just finished. I have a S550 project that I just worked on, finished a couple things on, and I picked it up over the holidays. That's a big learning curve. Learning a lot about S550, but it's a really nice platform. There's, with each generation of Mustangs, there's less there's fewer lower hanging fruit to pick, right? So Fox bodies had tons of low hanging fruit that need to be fixed. S187s, fixed a lot of the issues that people had, as far as a platform stiffness, all that kind of thing. But still lots of ways and room for improvement. And then S550, there's still room for improvement, but it's really just such a good car to start with. The bones are there to work with, and it's really it's my first S550 that I've driven more than a week, and each day it's growing on me a lot. It's bigger. I'm a Fox body guy, but it's a big car, compared to a Fox or SN95, but really nice car. So anyway, there's some things I just finished. I just posted yesterday about. There'll be more information coming out here too, videos that'll be posted over the next day or two about here's how to do springs, sway bars, and all that kind of stuff, which you guys are an H&R dealer also, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So they have super sport springs, really nice. Cannot say enough about those springs. On a performance pack car, lowered it 1 inch even all the way around. Really nice. Easy to do. The only specialized tool you really need is a spring compressor. That's something you can borrow from a local auto parts store. But everything else, I just did it on jack stands in the garage myself. No problems whatsoever. And they have some sway bars too, so that's good. Yeah, real easy stuff. Real easy stuff. So
So it looks like your YouTube channel is Fixed Body Mustangs,
Fixed
F-I-X.
Body Mustangs. Yep.
Yeah.
And you can get
So-
there via my website there too. But
Okay,
yeah, it's
cool.
Fixed Body Mustangs.
So you might want to go on there and like and subscribe to it, and
Yeah, please.
click the little bell so you get interesting information. As you know, Wes is very technical, and while you're on YouTube, go to the Kenny Brown Performance YouTube channel and click like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you get notifications of when we're coming out with things. So Wes, it has been wonderful having you on the show today.
Thanks.
And
Appreciate it.
and probably all of you can see why we love working with Wes. He does a lot of our engineering, a lot of our installation work, video, photography. So he's kind of has a man of many talents. So let's see if we have, I think it's time to give away our giveaway for today. I'm sorry we're running late for the people that had to cut out of here, but the people that are still hanging with us, it's a better chance for you to win. So we are giving away this handy dandy little fat boy thermos or thermos cup, and then we are also giving away a subscription to the Mustang Hub magazine. And Brad, I'm going to do this a little bit different. I have 2 questions, and Brad, do you have a picture of the track or not?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Brad, yeah, I can hear you. So Brad's going to put up the track. The first question is for the Mustang Hub subscription. And the first question is, what was one of Kenny's favorite tracks? And Brad, if you want to put up the picture. Hey, can anybody guess that? First person that guesses what was one of Kenny's favorite tracks, put it in the comments and with your name, and you will win the Mustang Hub magazine. Looks like Fred Francher, you're close, but no cigar. Tom Nelson, nope. The Glen, it's not the Glen. That was his favorite track. This is one of his favorite tracks. So, Jeff, you can play too. Don't get to play. Oh, you know what it is. Yeah, Jeff, I guess you can be on the next question though, Jeff. Oh, Bob Jones can't do it because the screen's frozen. Oh, Calvin Gorin Road, Atlanta. Oh my goodness, you guys. How long have you been with the program? Some of these old people that have been here forever. Road, Atlanta. Nope. Let's guess. Starts with a road, though. Brad, are you surprised we're not getting any answers to this?
I am. I'm totally shocked.
Indianapolis Raceway. I'm glad you guys are all participating, but it's close. Lucas Oil. Nope. It's not close to Indianapolis. I should say that. It's out of all the tracks, though. It's probably, how far away is it? I can start talking about it. Well, anyway, Kenny worked here in 1986. He ran the Skip Barber show program at the track, and he loved that. I think that was one of his best. Hint. Okay.
I got a hint. So they have the best deep fried cheese curds.
And their bratwursts are wonderful too. So
it looks like Fred actually did get it correct, followed by Calvin.
Yeah. Okay, so Fred, you win the Mustang Hub Mustang magazine subscription. So we'll get that off to you. And then the next question is so Road America, he's talked about his Road America experiences quite a bit. What is the one thing that he still has from Road America? What is the one piece it's a physical piece that he still has from Road America that he probably should have given back? But anyway, he ran the Skip Barber program in 1986 at Road America for the summer. And he had a great time there. I think it was one of his best summers he's ever had. He was married at the time, and he obviously still had those commitments, but he was there alone, just kind of having drinks every night, carrying on like a motorsports person would. So Fred Francher, you won again. Oh my goodness. So
well, Paul Dondero did.
Oh yeah.
He did chime in.
Okay. So I think we never let anybody win twice. How's that sound? So Paul Dondero, that's the key to Road America from 1986. That's all it took to get into that track. So he had
That's the key to the front gate.
Yep. Can you believe that? So look how small it is. I mean, it's not that big. But anyway, he thoroughly enjoyed that. He used to had a Porsche at the time.
Paul Dondero wants to know if he can have the key.
Yeah, you're right up there. You'd love it. So I don't think we're giving this key up. But anyway, Kenny loved it. He had a Porsche at the time, and he would, once he closed the track, he would drive around in his Porsche on Road America. So I think that's his second all-time favorite track. So anyway, Paul, this is what you won. We always give weekly
No, that's
giveaways.
Fred. That's what Fred. Oh, that's what Fred wanted.
Fred wanted this.
He won the tumbler, and Paul won the magazine subscription. Is that how it worked? Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Fred won the magazine subscription, and Paul won the tumbler.
Yes. So there we are. So you'll love this, Paul. And let's see what else we have. I'm looking at the comments right now. If you're new to the Kenny Brown show, we have guests on every other week live that you can ask questions. We have guest experts, personality guests. Wes, I mean, he's wonderful to be adding. So join us. It's at 10 o'clock every Saturday morning. And does the key say?
Here's another thing I wanted to mention is, well, first off, Cari, we've got a couple of events coming up that we're promoting. And so I wanted you to mention those before we close the show out, and I'll post a link to those as well. And I also wanted to mention that Wes and I, as well as Cari, in the coming weeks, and I don't know if this is 2, 3, 4 weeks out, we will be doing a special episode on the K-Link, because we've got a couple of announcements, and we wanted to go over some general basics. So look forward to that in the future. We'll be working with Cari to get that scheduled out as well. But so what Wes and I and Cari will host a special segment on just the K-Link. And Cari, I lost you. Can I add you back to the stream?
Sure. Okay. So there's the two events that we are promoting, we recommend you go to if you can, is Motor City Fox Fest. That is up in on the Detroit, headquarters. It's a really cool place to go. A lot of Ford people will be there, along with a ton of Fox Mustangs there, and also SN95. And that is middle of June. Brad, do you have the date there? Actually, middle of July.
Yeah, I believe it is July 15th.
Okay, July 15th. You don't want to miss that. It will be really fun. It's at Ford World Headquarters, July 15th. The other one is the Mustang Club of America. One of their national events is here in Indianapolis, which is always a fun place to come, Motor City of the world. So racing capital of the world. Sorry about that. We've got the Motor City and then the capital of the racing world. So getting those a little confused. But anyway, that is, let's see, June. Brad, do you have the dates on that?
That is July 27th for the open track event, which will be at Putnam Park. And then the following days, July 28th and 29th, will be their car show event, which is going to be, it escapes me, but it's not going to be in Indianapolis. It's going to be just outside.
Yeah. It's in one of the suburbs of Indianapolis, Plainfield. And the track event at Putnam Park is a great place to drive. That was our home track. We do a lot of testing there. It's just a wonderful course. And if you can get away for a day, or if you're going to that event, make sure you sign up for the driving event. It'll be a really good event. Anything else, Brad, you want to add, or?
No,
Wes?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, Wes, it was wonderful having you on the show. And Dana, it was wonderful having you show all the breaks. So we really appreciate that. So you take care, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.